had been up since 5 a.m., not because anyone forced me to, but because I wanted this year's Thanksgiving dinner to be perfect. The kitchen was filled with the scent of butter, cinnamon, and sage, just like my childhood memories in Ohio. The 17-pound turkey, marinated overnight, was slowly roasting at 350 degrees in the oven. I stood by the sink, apron on, slicing pumpkin pie while listening to the steady patter of rain on the porch roof. Behind me, my husband Matthew's phone rang again, the 6th time that morning. I glanced through the kitchen doorway. He lingered by the dining table, eyes glued to his screen, lips curled into a smile. That smile, it hadn't been meant for me in a long time. "Matthew, can you help me put the potato tray in the oven?" I called out. "Just a minute," he replied, his fingers dancing across the screen like they were pulled by some invisible string. I clenched the dish towel in my hands. Of course. Everything from cleaning, cooking, to planning the menu I had done alone, like every year. But this year felt different. Not because I was tired, but because of a dull ache in my chest, one I had been pushing away for months. At exactly 11:30, my kids arrived. Emma had just driven in from Oregon, eyes slightly shadowed from late-night studying but wearing the brightest smile. Lucas, now working in New York, wrapped his arms around me from behind as I stirred the cranberry sauce, teasing, "The house still smells like the best place in the world, you know that, Mom?" He smiled faintly, and for a moment, every hour of lost sleep felt worth it. The dining table was set with care. I brought out the blush pink china with gold trim we only used on special occasions. Candles glowed softly. Linen napkins were folded neatly. Every detail had been thought through. Matthew said nothing about it. Once everyone was seated, I poured the wine and listened to the kids' laughter echo across the room. That was the moment I had imagined, through every chore and every recipe. But then Matthew set down his glass and rose abruptly from his seat. "I have something I need to announce." His voice was so calm it was unnerving. The table fell silent. I saw Emma's hand freeze mid-air. Lucas frowned deeply. Matthew cleared his throat and adjusted his shirt like he was preparing to deliver a boardroom presentation. "I've decided to sell this house." "What?" Lucas almost shouted. Matthew continued, not allowing interruption. "Jennifer and her kids need more space. Kayla just turned 4 and the twin boys are starting 1st grade soon. Her apartment is too small for 3 kids." It felt like someone had shoved me down in the middle of a crowded room. Jennifer? The name I had heard in passing for over 6 months, the coworker who called outside of work hours, the friend from marketing who needed emotional support. She now had 3 children, and a house that Matthew was planning to gift her. Emma looked at me, lips parted but no words came. Lucas shot up from his seat, eyes burning. I stared at Matthew, the man who had just used his voice to tear apart everything I had built over 19 years, our home, our trust, the sacred moments of our family, in front of our children. He didn't hesitate to sever us, just to clear a path for another woman. I didn't scream, didn't slam my wine glass or cry at the table. I stood, slow, steady, as if every step had already been rehearsed. I walked into the kitchen, opened the 3rd drawer where I had hidden the envelope for the past 3 weeks. Returning to the table, I placed it down beside Matthew's plate, right next to the gravy stain he made while rambling about the new house and how the kids need a bigger yard. "If today is a day for announcements, then I have something for you too." I sat back down, set my utensils aside, and locked eyes with him. He looked at the envelope as if it had materialized out of thin air, and for once the usual arrogance in his eyes was gone, replaced by something closer to unease, maybe even fear, like he could sense that it wasn't just paper inside. "What is this?" he asked, his voice rasping. My lips lifted slightly, void of warmth, void of anger. "A gift, for your clarity." Then I calmly cut another piece of sweet potato pie, chewing it even though my throat was dry. I didn't need to spell it out. I wanted him to open it himself. Emma whispered. "Mom? How long have you known?" I didn't take my eyes off Matthew. Long enough to be prepared, long enough not to ruin this dinner with a pointless outburst. To Matthew, that envelope was just a packet of paper. But to me, it was a silent declaration. I know everything. And I'm already 3 steps ahead. I still remember the exact night I first began to suspect Matthew. It was a cold, rainy March evening. I was waiting for him to come home like always. 19 years of marriage, and he had never come home later than 10 without calling. But that night, the clock ticked past 11:30, and all I could hear was the hum of the fridge and the rain against the window. When he finally walked in, coat slightly wrinkled, hair looking freshly combed, I knew something was off. Sorry, the meeting ran long. He dropped his bag on the chair, avoiding my eyes. I had reheated the lasagna 3 times. I asked him about the project, the client, who else was at the meeting. He had answers for everything, smooth, neat, flawless. Maybe too flawless. After that night, the late meetings started showing up more frequently on his calendar. I took note but said nothing, told myself he was just dedicated to work, told myself I was imagining things. But the truth is, I had already started paying attention. The first time I heard the name Jennifer was one evening in late April. I was washing the dishes after dinner when Matthew's phone rang. The screen lit up with the name, Jennifer M. Marketing. I wasn't the type to snoop through my husband's messages, but when I saw him reject the call and quickly type, "Don't call right now, she's home," I froze at the sink. From that day on, Jennifer's name started appearing more often during casual conversations, in offhand mentions when he talked about ideas from the marketing team, or when describing a brilliant woman who just joined the company. A Jennifer, the one who really understands customer psychology, who's so creative with campaign strategies, who's going through a divorce and needs someone to talk to. And me, what about me? One morning in early May, I accidentally saw a photo flash across Matthew's phone screen while he was napping on the couch. It was taken in a park. Matthew, in his familiar gray t-shirt, was tying a little boy's shoelaces. Standing next to him was a brunette woman, her arms around a young girl, with a radiant smile. I didn't know whether to feel heartbroken or stunned, because that photo was taken on the same day he told me he was going to a basketball game with Lucas. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I opened my laptop and started searching. Jennifer Marks, living in the northern suburbs, former marketing director at a small firm, mother of 3, recently divorced late last year. Her social media was filled with images of her new family, kids, picnics, joyful dinners, and a faceless man I recognized instantly, Matthew. He once refused to take me to the cupcake shop on Springville Street, saying, "It's too far, not worth it." Yet in one of Jennifer's photos, she was grinning next to a pink cupcake with the caption, "A treat from the one who makes life sweeter." Confused, humiliated, crushed, I carried that storm of emotions through the entire month of June. But still, I didn't act. I didn't confront. I needed more. I needed certainty. Then came the day Emma casually mentioned, in a tone of complete innocence. "Last time I saw Dad downtown, he was with someone and 3 little kids. I thought it was a coworker, but the way they walked together, it kind of felt like a family, you know?" I knew. That was when everything became painfully clear. Matthew wasn't just cheating. He was building a new life, a new family, while still expecting me to set the table, plan our anniversary, and remind our children to call their father more often. I no longer felt like a wife. I felt like a placeholder, the woman who kept the house warm just in case he needed a break from his other life. But I wasn't waiting for him to come home anymore. From that moment on, I started documenting everything, every detail, every odd comment, every suspicious bank transaction. Not to cry, not to accuse, but to prepare for today. The day he calmly got to his feet at Thanksgiving dinner and told our children he was giving our house to another woman and her kids. He didn't expect that I had something to announce, too. And it wasn't dessert. The envelope stayed sealed that night. There was no need. I knew exactly what I'd placed inside, and I knew it was heavy enough to keep Matthew awake for many nights. That envelope held something he couldn't delete, couldn't spin with his usual lies, financial evidence, clear, notarized, with figures and timestamps. Everything began in early July when I received a notice from the power company, The bill from the previous month hadn't been paid. It was the first time in nearly 20 years my name appeared on a past due list. I froze. I'd been transferring my share of the household expenses to Matthew as always. He was supposed to handle the rest. And he never missed a payment. I called him right after hanging up with the utility company. "I thought you paid the bill?" "Oh, must have been a system glitch. I'll check later, don't worry." But I did worry. From that day on, I quietly checked the bank accounts tied to both our names. Then I found something that nearly made me drop my phone. A new savings account opened 11 months ago, listing only 2 names: Matthew Davidson and someone I had never heard of, Jennifer E. Marks. At first I thought it was a mistake, but after logging into the statements, I felt my heart beat slow to ice. The transactions were constant, almost daily. $75 at Little Dreamers, a luxury children's furniture store. $129 at Sweet Sprinkles Bakery, known for custom birthday cakes. $340 at Tiny Steps Shoes, a custom children's shoe boutique. $700 paid to Bright Horizons Preschool. Not a single one of those names had anything to do with me or our kids. I went back and checked our home bills. Electricity had been delayed. Our internet plan had been downgraded to cut costs. Emma's college tuition? Money I thought Matthew had transferred, had never arrived. I sat among those papers, my palms ice cold. Matthew had drained money from our marital accounts to support 3 children who weren't his, while letting his own daughter struggle to survive on scholarships and part-time jobs. I started printing every bank statement from the last 3 months, page by page, transaction by transaction. I didn't want to believe it, but each printed line drove deeper into an undeniable truth. The man I married had used our family's money to build another family, secretly but with a clear plan. I found one suspicious large payment, $1,980, made to an interior design company in Lincoln Park. I went there in person, pretending to be an interested client. The receptionist looked at the photo I showed her and immediately said, "Oh, that's Miss Marks and her boyfriend's place, right? They just finished decorating the kid's bedroom. We still have the design samples if you want to see." I managed a courteous thank you, all while feeling something collapse behind my ribs. Back home, I opened Matthew's coat closet. In the side pocket of the blazer he often wore to client meetings was a stack of receipts. Groceries, toy stores, pharmacies, all for children's items. There was even a receipt for a birthday cake with pink icing that read, "Happy 5th birthday, Elise." Elise wasn't my niece, she wasn't Emma's friend either. Elise was the daughter of the woman Matthew was secretly protecting. I gathered it all, statements, receipts, photos, transaction summaries, and sealed them in a large envelope. I wrote Matthew on the front, in the same careful handwriting I once used to write him love letters when we were dating. I didn't write anything else, I let the numbers and the paper speak. That night, while he was outside talking to Jennifer on the phone, pretending it was a work call, I stood in the dark, my hand resting on the door latch, and heard every word. "Don't worry, the house will be under your name by the end of the month. It's just paperwork. You go ahead and pick out the curtain color." I turned away, opened my printer, and started making a second copy for my attorney. I knew I'd need it. I met Gregory Palmer on a Monday morning in early September in a sunlit office on the 6th floor of a downtown building. The nameplate on the door read, "Palmer and Associates, Divorce and Personal Asset Protection." He looked to be in his 50s, with sharp eyes that weren't cold and a calm, measured voice, as if every word had been weighed carefully. I handed him the file I had spent 3 weeks compiling: bank statements, transaction screenshots, store receipts, even the birthday cake invoice for a little girl who wasn't mine. Gregory flipped through each page, nodding. "You've done the kind of work that usually takes a full forensic team. I don't think we'll need to hire a private investigator." I gave a faint smile. Who needs surveillance when your own husband leaves a financial breadcrumb trail at every step? "I need to keep the house," I said firmly. "He's planning to sell it, and I won't let that happen." Gregory gave a brief incline of his head before setting the file aside. "Is the house currently under both names?" "Yes. But most of the mortgage has been paid from my account. I have the statements." "Perfect. Then we'll convert your share into sole ownership, using a quiet, internal legal procedure. Quick, clean, discreet. Starting that week, I went to Gregory's office every Tuesday afternoon after work. Each appointment was booked under N. Ellis, my maiden name. I didn't leave voicemails. I didn't send emails. All correspondence was handwritten and mailed, like I was living in another era. But in that era, secrecy was still the sharpest weapon. I signed every document with a steady hand. Sometimes I wondered, was my hand this firm when I signed my marriage certificate? October came and the weather turned cold. Outside, Matthew kept playing the part of a normal husband. He had no idea the house he was planning to sell no longer belonged to him. I changed the safe's combination. I reorganized all our legal documents. I sent a copy of the entire legal file to a bank vault registered in my name alone. I reset the board, then sat and waited for my moment. And he gave it to me. That evening, when Matthew stood at the Thanksgiving dinner table and boldly declared he was selling the house, I wasn't shocked. It felt like watching a man sign his own sentence with arrogance. When he mentioned Jennifer, when he spoke of 3 unfamiliar children, when he used the word stability to describe the life he was trying to squeeze another woman into, I knew it was time. No one opens an envelope when they sense the contents could shatter their entire future plan, and I made sure of that. Inside the envelope were a copy of the house deed transfer now under my name alone, a detailed statement of Matthew's spending with notes on each transaction involving Jennifer, a notarized legal certificate confirming the separation of marital assets. Attached was a short note, handwritten in careful script. I didn't need to win this house. I just wasn't going to let you sell something you never fully owned. I had been preparing for that moment for 3 months. Not to retaliate, but to protect everything I had worked so hard to build. This house wasn't just brick and mortar. It was where Emma took her first steps, where Lucas learned to play guitar, where I had hung a Christmas wreath on the door 19 times, hoping to hold our family together. Matthew was no longer part of that, and he would have to face the consequences. Every line of black ink on white paper. Matthew didn't open the envelope on Thanksgiving night. But I knew, from the moment I set it on the table, he couldn't eat another bite. That night I heard his footsteps pacing downstairs, heavy, halting, then starting again. It went on for nearly 2 hours. When I turned off the lights to go to sleep, the envelope was still tucked in the coat he had hung by the door. But by morning, it had been opened. I knew because when I walked into the kitchen to make coffee, Matthew was sitting silently at the dining table, eyes bloodshot, clutching the stack of documents like they could somehow undo what had just happened. "What did you do?" he asked, voice hoarse. I set the coffee down without turning around. "I protected what you were trying to throw away." He stayed quiet for a long time, then suddenly stood up. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking so much the screen slipped 3 times before he managed to unlock it. I heard him say Jennifer into the silence. "Babe," he began, trying to sound calm. "About the house, there's just a little hiccup. The paperwork, it's not finalized yet." I poured more coffee, stayed quiet. Jennifer's voice burst through the speaker so loudly I didn't need to strain to hear. "You promised me. You said the house was yours. The kids already picked the wall colors, Matthew. You said we'd move in next month." Matthew staggered into a chair. Sweat broke out on his temples. "It's just a paperwork issue. I'm handling it. You're a liar," she screamed. "I quit my job. I turned down a proposal from my kid's father to be with you. And now you're telling me the house was never even yours?" I wasn't gloating. I just turned away and poured another cup. The call ended. Matthew collapsed into the chair, pale as if he'd just received a subpoena. That's when I walked out of the kitchen, leaving him with the documents that were burning through the future he had built on lies. Jennifer left town the following Monday. I knew because Emma had seen her loading suitcases and 3 kids into a rented SUV parked outside the law office. "Mom," she said. She was crying a lot. Her face was all wet. And Dad was just standing by the parking lot. He didn't even go near. I shrugged. "Everyone's responsible for their choices, sweetheart." Less than 2 weeks later, Matthew was let go from his company. The official reason was internal restructuring, but everyone knew. Once they found out he had used the corporate card for personal expenses, and by personal they meant Jennifer and the 3 kids. There was nothing left to defend. He moved into an old studio apartment on the west side, the same place he used to mock as cramped, dark, and unlivable. His car was repossessed for missed payments. The Rolex he used to wear to meetings was now listed as pawned assets. Emma and Lucas refused to see him. Every time he texted, Emma replied with just 3 words, "Ask Mom instead." As for Lucas, when Matthew called the 4th time, he finally picked up. "What do you want?" "I just want to explain. What happened, it's not what you think." "No, it's exactly what I think. You chose another family over your real one, and now you want to come back like nothing happened?" Matthew had no answer. Lucas added, "I don't need you to fix anything. But if you still have an ounce of respect for Mom, then step away quietly. That's the only decent thing you can do now." I don't know if Matthew backed off because of our son's words, or because he had nowhere left to go, but after that he vanished from my life like dried ink wiped off a page. The people who once admired him just sighed. A few whom he used to belittle simply smiled. And me, I never looked back. I wasn't waiting to watch him break. I only cared that the life he traded us for turned to dust. I started renovating the house on a January morning when rare winter sunlight poured through the kitchen window, making the dust in the air shimmer like suspended glitter. There were no interior designers, no mood boards, no professional crews, just me, a can of olive gray paint, and a pair of rubber gloves I borrowed from Emma. I started with the living room, the space where Matthew used to sit every night reading emails, headphones in, face frozen like stone. Now the walls were a soft, calming gray. The family photos I'd taken down 3 weeks earlier were gone. In their place hung 3 abstract paintings I'd bought from a local artisan shop. I sealed up Matthew's old office bookshelf and turned the room into my own reading nook. A cream armchair, a vintage standing lamp, a few small plants, and the scent of sweet orange essential oil every afternoon. I didn't call it the office. I called it the place I could finally breathe. Lucas came to visit on a Saturday afternoon. He walked into the living room and froze. "Mom? You changed everything?" I reached for the teapot with steady hands, the warmth in my chest spreading quietly. "I think it's time this house reflected the person actually living in it." Lucas didn't ask more, but his eyes saw me as a woman living again, no longer a worn-out mother clinging to something that had rotted long ago. Emma was living in Portland, interning at a landscape design firm. She called me 3 times a week. Every call started with, "Mom, I just learned something new," and ended with, "I miss you so much." She said that thanks to me she finally understood. Women don't have to endure to keep a family. Women can choose themselves again. And I believe Emma will keep choosing herself, each time more firmly and confidently than before. I didn't return to work right away. I took 2 months off, the first time in my life without a strict schedule. Instead, I volunteered at a women's support center, helping, listening, and guiding women who were just as lost as I once was. Gregory Palmer, my lawyer, became a friend. It started with work calls, then Friday morning coffee. Gregory never asked about Matthew, never pitied me. He just asked simple things. "What are you reading this week? Have you replanted the garden? Do you like the theater?" I wasn't rushing to label what we had. I just knew that every time we talked, I laughed more, and I didn't feel the need to prove anything. That spring I put the nameplate back on the front gate. Nora Ellis. No more Davidson. No more trace of the years I lived in someone else's shadow. One day I received a registered envelope from the court. Matthew had officially filed for divorce, but this time my hands didn't tremble. I set the papers on my newly painted wooden table, poured myself a glass of red wine, and played my favorite jazz record. I replanted the whole backyard garden, the one Matthew once called a waste of time. I planted wild daisies, lavender, and even some cherry tomatoes. Every morning I stepped outside to water them, watched the leaves sway in the breeze, and felt reborn. One April afternoon, while planting more lavender, Matthew called. His number popped up, saved in my phone as Matthew Do Not Answer. But for some reason, maybe quiet curiosity, I picked up. "Nora." His voice was hoarse, hesitant. "I know I shouldn't call, but I need to see the kids." I said nothing. I want to make things right. I know I destroyed everything, but if there's any chance, to talk to Emma and Lucas, I'll do anything. I looked up at the sky. A few birds glided across the soft blue. The breeze carried the scent of damp soil and peppermint oil from the diffuser on the porch. I took a deep breath. Matthew, your kids aren't little anymore. You can't bribe or fool them. They're grown and they know everything. It's up to them to decide if you deserve to be in their lives. I know, he paused. But please, can you help me? Tell them I've changed? I hung up, no words. 3 days later, Lucas called. Mom, Dad texted me. I was organizing books in my favorite reading nook. What are you going to do? I asked calmly. I already did, Lucas said. I told him. He walked out on this family. He doesn't get to come back like nothing ever happened. He's not someone I can trust anymore. I sat down, my hand resting lightly on my knee. I'm proud of you. Lucas didn't say anything, but I could hear him breathing slow and steady. Emma responded to Matthew with one short message. When you watched Mom fall, you didn't come back to pull her up. So don't pretend to care now that she's standing on her own. I don't know how Matthew's living now on the other side of the city, but I've heard a few things. That his job fell through, that he was rejected from most mid-level positions due to financial trust issues, that Jennifer moved on. With a dentist this time. Stable. Kind. He's renting an old apartment on the south side, taking the bus to work and constantly behind on paychecks. A woman from my volunteer group said she saw him once in line at a discount store, thin and lost-looking. She wasn't sure it was him, until he turned and awkwardly nodded. I didn't feel smug. Just did. These days, I wake up to the scent of fresh coffee. I water my garden. I chat with Gregory at the corner cafe every Friday. Emma sends me photos of her first community garden design in Portland. Lucas just got promoted to team lead at his tech firm in Austin. Our family isn't complete in the traditional sense, but it's whole in our own way. I used to think revenge meant making someone suffer 100 times worse, but no. Real revenge is living so well that they no longer have a place in your life to hurt you again. One time, while sipping espresso, Gregory said, Nora, you didn't just survive, you transformed. I laughed. I don't like the word transformed. I don't need to become someone new. I just needed to be myself fully, without asking for permission. That summer, Emma, Lucas, and I threw a small garden party. No reason, just to celebrate a beautiful day. Surrounded by blossoms, I watched my children's laughter dance with the sunset. And in that moment, everything felt still. My story isn't about betrayal. It's about how a woman reclaimed her life after deep heartbreak. I used to believe I had to sacrifice to hold a family together. But the truth is, letting go at the right time takes more courage. Happiness doesn't come from begging someone to stay. It comes from building a life where you never have to ask permission to be yourself. And sometimes the losses are what finally make room for freedom to begin. What do you think about Nora's choices and the ending Matthew received? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow this channel for more heartfelt stories about family, love, and life's turning points.